Welcome back to On the Same Page. We are on Daf Chaf Amar Aleph, 20a of Meseches Megillah, and we are starting about 10 lines down the page or so, where it says, Rabbi Yehuda Machshir Bekatan. Rabbi Yehuda allowed for a katan to read the Megillah and to be motzi, for others, for adults even, it sounds like, to be yotze, to fulfill their obligation with the reading of the katan, with the reading of a minor. Says the Gemara, de Tanya, or Tanya, we have a brisa, Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said. So this was kind of his proof that it's allowed. Katan hayisi, I was a katan, I was a minor, v'karise lemala me Rabbi Tarfon u'zekenim belud, and I read it in front of Rabbi Tarfon and the zekenim and the elders in Lud. And apparently they were yotze with his reading. So he says, you see, that it's okay. I can be a katan, a child could be motzi, can fulfill the obligation on behalf of others. Amrlo, so the other rabbanim said to Rabbi Yehuda, Ein meving raya min katan. You can't bring a proof from what happened to someone as a minor, since as a minor you don't have the proper level of understanding. Then even though now you're an adult and you're reporting what you experienced, but maybe you didn't understand what was going on then. You can't prove from what happened to you as a child that you can't assume that your understanding of what happened to you as a child was correct, and therefore you can't bring a proof from there. Tanya, we have another brisa. Amar Rebbe. Rebbe said, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi said, Katan hayisi, I was a katan, I was a child, B'karisi lemala me Rabbi Yehuda. And I read it in front of Rabbi Yehuda as a katan, and he didn't say anything. So you see, it's okay. So Amrullah, they said to him, Ein meving raya min amatir. You can't bring a proof from the one who permits it. Yes, of course Rabbi Yehuda allowed you to read it, because Rabbi Yehuda holds that it's kosher. But we're debating whether Rabbi Yehuda is correct or not. So the fact that Rabbi Yehuda allowed Rabbi Yehuda Anasi to read the Megillah for him is no proof that for us that Rabbi Yehuda is correct. He just acted based on what he held. Ask the Gemara, let them have said to Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, to Rabbi, instead of saying you can't bring a raya, you can't bring a proof from the matir, from the one who permits it, say you can't bring a proof from what happened to you as a child. That's what we said in the previous scenario with when Rabbi Yehuda reported doing it as a child. So why don't we say the same when Rabbi Yehuda Nasi reported doing it as a child? So says the Gemara, you're right, but chada ve'od ka'amrulei. It's the style is it's this, and plus there's another reason. Chada de katangisa. First of all, you were a child. That's true. That you can't bring a proof from what happened to you as a child. Ve'od, and furthermore, afiu gadol ha'isa. Even if you weren't a child, even if you had been an adult, I guess observing what took place, you can't bring a proof from the one who allows it that it's allowed. That's exactly what we're debating, is whether the one who allows it is correct. So you can't bring a proof from him that it's okay. Okay. Says the Mishnah, new Mishnah. Ein kares ha-Megillah. One may not read the Megillah, and then we're going to list a bunch of other things, and what we're getting to is until sunrise. So you cannot read the Megillah until sunrise. Ein kares ha-Megillah. You can't read the Megillah. Vilo malin. You can't do a bris milah, circumcision. Vilo tovlin. And you cannot go to the mikvah. That's talking about a zav, or a tamei, somebody who had certain types of emissions, or a tamei, somebody who became impure from contact with the dead. So they go to the mikvah on the seventh day, but even though the night starts, the day starts from the night before, they can't go at night. They have to wait till the daytime to go to the mikvah. Velo mazin. Also, when it comes to sprinkling the ashes, the paraduma, or the water that has the ashes mixed in, to help purify somebody who was tamei meis, who came in contact with the dead, we would sprinkle it on the 3rd day and on the 7th day, but it has to be in the daytime, after sunrise. V'chein shomeres yom keneged yom lo titval. So too a shomeres yom keneged yom. Shomeres yom keneged yom is a woman who has seen a zava emission. So basically, by Torah law, now we do it a little bit differently. We're extra careful about things, but by Torah law, a woman who menstruates sees menstrual blood, so she's a nida for 7 days, and then she, as long as by the end of the 7 days the flow has stopped, she can go to the mikvah. She's no longer a nida. Then the 11 days that follow, even if she would excrete dam, blood, uterine blood even, so it would not make her a nida, it would make her potentially a zava, and it depends. It's for those next 11 days. If she sees one day, then she has to be on guard the next day to see if she would see more, and she goes to the mikvah that day. If she sees the 2nd day, then she has to be on guard on the 3rd day. If she sees 3 days straight, then she becomes a zava gedola, a full-fledged zava, and she needs 7 clean days in order to purify herself. But if she only sees 1 day or 2 days, so then she just needs 1 day without seeing, and she can go to the mikvah, actually on that day itself. So our Mishnah is saying that so too, one of these women, shomeres yom keneged yom, a zava, and during those 11 days, she saw 1 day or she saw 2 days, and she goes to the mikvah the next day, so it has to be after Neitz Chachama. So that's what we say, ad shetan Neitz Chachama, lo titva ad shetan Neitz Chachama, she cannot immerse in the mikvah until sunrise. So again, just to read it straight, in Karing Megillah, one cannot read the Megillah, v'lo mulling, or do a bris milah, v'lo tovling, or go to the mikvah for a 7-day impurity, v'lo mazing, nor sprinkle the ashes, the water with the ashes of the paraduma, for somebody who's tamei meis, who's impure from contact with the dead. V'chein shomeres yom keneged yom, also a woman who is purifying herself from 1 day of ziva, of having blood emissions during those 11 days that follow the days of nida. So lo titfol, she cannot go in the mikvah ad shetan Neitz Chachama, until sunrise. Says the Mishnah, v'kulan sha'asa misha'ala amad hashachar kasher. But any of these people actually b'diavad, if they would do this, whatever it is, read the Megillah, do a bris milah, go to the mikvah, already from dawn, from daybreak, so amud hashachar, or alos hashachar, so it would work. So lechatchila, ideally, you're supposed to wait until Neitz, sunrise, but b'diavad, anytime after dawn, it would still work. It would be kosher, or one would be yotze, one would fulfill their obligation. Okay, so the Gemara now is going to go through each of these things on the list and ask what's the source for it. So minalan, from where do we know that the Megillah has to be read after sunrise, or during the day, really? So da'amakra, because the pasuk says va'yamim ha'ela nizkarim v'na'asim, these days should be remembered, which is talking about the reading of the Megillah. Bayomin balaylo, which teaches us that it has to be in the day and not in the night. It's seemingly coming from the words vayamim ha'ela, these days should be remembered. It's not so clear to me how that would imply that you read the Megillah during the day. It's just saying you should read the Megillah to remember these days. It's not so clear how that would imply that it has to be read during the day. Even though the Gemara, when it wants you to continue reading the pasuk, would usually say v'chulei, still I'm wondering, v'chulei means like and so on, which might indicate that the proof is from later in the pasuk. I'm wondering if indeed the proof is from later in the pasuk, because the pasuk goes on and it says, these days of Purim should not pass from the Jews, implying we're talking about the day of Purim, and that's when we're telling you Nizkarim and Asim, like it should be remembered. So this teaches us that you need to read the Megillah during the day. So therefore it has to be after Neitz Chachama, after sunrise, ideally. B'diavad it can work already after Alos, after dawn. So ask the Gemara, Lema tiavet yufta Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. So perhaps this Mishnah should be a refutation of the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. De'amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, because Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said, Chayav adam likros Megillah b'layla v'lishanosa b'yom. A person is obligated to read the Megillah at night and then to repeat it during the daytime. And this Mishnah says that you have to read it after sunrise. So it sounds like you only have to read it after sunrise, only during the daytime, and you do not have to read it at nighttime, and this would be a contradiction, a refutation of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. So the Gemara answers no. Ki katani adayom. No, our Mishnah, the whole thing is only speaking about the daytime obligation of reading the Megillah. When the Mishnah says the Megillah has to be read after sunrise, it's talking about in order to fulfill the daytime obligation. That has to be done, or should be done, ideally after sunrise, but certainly has to be done after daybreak, after dawn, to fulfill the daytime mitzvah. It's not saying there isn't a nighttime mitzvah, there's also a nighttime mitzvah, but we're just talking about the daytime mitzvah. It's ideally done after nates, after sunrise. Okay, now the next thing it said was V'lo malin, and you can't do bris milah. Dichsiv, what's the source that you have to do bris milah during the daytime? It says Uvayom hashemini yimol. And on the 8th day, this is in Parshas Tazria, on the 8th day, he should be giving a circumcision during the daytime. So that also has to be during the day. V'lo tovlin. Let me just make one more point, which I skipped over, which is why is it better to wait until nates, until sunrise, and not if it needs to be in the day? What's wrong with earlier in the day? What's wrong with doing it already from daybreak, from dawn? So Rashi says in the Mishnah on the words ad hanetz hachama that you should wait until nates, because sheyatsa misafik laila. Once it's sunrise, it's no longer any doubt that it might be considered night. Rashi's implying that the time before sunrise is kind of this suffix stage, this where we're not sure what it is, similar to what we have that between sunset and the stars coming out. We call it bein hashmashos, between the sun beginning of the sunset to the end of the sunset, and it's kind of a suffix time. It's doubtful, is it still the day or is it nighttime? So Rashi's implying we have a similar thing in the morning, that between dawn and sunrise is this time of doubt, and therefore it's better to wait until sunrise. But yet the Mishnah then says, though, that if you do it from daybreak, from dawn, you're still yotze all of these things, which would imply that we're not treating it like a full-fledged doubt, because then we would maybe tell you to repeat it, because you might have done it at night, especially the things that are d'oraisa, that are Torah requirements, which this list does include some of those. And Rashi explains the last part of the Mishnah. It says, if you do it in the daytime, you're yotze, because really from daybreak it is daytime, but it's just sometimes hard to tell. When daybreak is exactly, it's better to wait until sunrise. And so the ideal is to wait till sunrise. That's when you're sure that it's daytime. Okay, back to our Gemara. So it said, V'lo mazin. We don't sprinkle the ashes, the water with the ashes of the paraduma on somebody who's tamei, mace, who had contact with the dead, until it's daytime of the 3rd day and the 7th day of his purification process. Dichsiv says that because the pasuk says in Parashas Chukas, it says, V'za hatar al tamei, bayom hashlishi bayom hashavi, that a tahor person, a person who's pure, should sprinkle this onto the person who's impure on the 3rd day and on the 7th day. So it has to be during the daytime. Now, how do I know that also that tevilah, that somebody who is being tovel, who's immersing, going to the mikvah to purify themselves from tumah, also has to do it during the day? The iskish tevilah lahazaya. We compare tevilah, the immersion in the mikvah, to hazaya, to the sprinkling of the water. That just like the sprinkling of the water has to be done in the daytime, so too tevilah has to, because the end of that pasuk says virachatz b'mayim v'taher ba'arv, that he has to wash himself in the water and then he'll be pure. So the immersion in the water is the end of the same pasuk. It's compared to the sprinkling that also has to be done during the daytime specifically. The Mishnah said, so too, a shomeres yom keneged yom, this woman who had some kind of blood emission, menstrual emission, during those 11 days of Ziva, she had one emission, so she's got to watch out the next day for another one, shomeres yom keneged yom. So she too can only go to the mikvah during the daytime. Ask the Gemara, Pshita. Of course, that's obvious. Ma'ishna shomeres yom keneged yom mikol chai v'tfilos. We just said that anybody going to the mikvah, purifying themselves, has to go during the day. So, or it has to, at least wait till the day to go. So why would I think that shomeres yom keneged yom is any different? So Gemara says it's true. No, it needed to single her out, the shomeres yom keneged yom specifically. Kasal gadaita chamina tiave kiriya rishona shel zav uriya rishona shel fine. So I would have thought that a woman who becomes a zava, she has her kind of emission, is similar to a zav, a male who has a certain type of emission, which makes him into a zav. So there's a specific type of emission that a man can have that makes him tameh. It's called a zav. And he goes to the mikvah, though, on the very day that he has the emission, he could go. How do we know? Because Rio Rishona Shazav Iskish L'Bal Kari. Because the first sighting, the first time emission of a zav is compared to a Balkari. A Balkari is someone who just has a regular seminal emission, makes him tameh to a certain extent, and he could go to the mikvah the day that he has the seminal emission. And the zav is compared to him. So again, a zav is also having some kind of emission from the same spot. It's just it's we don't really know how to identify it now, but it's not just seeming, it's something different. So that's maybe more of a disease. Whatever it is, it makes a person tameh as a zav. So Dichsiv, the pasuk says zos taras hazav. Here is the rule of the zav, vasher tetzei mimeno shichva zera, as well as one who has a seminal emission. So it puts them together in this pasuk, and just like a balkari, someone with a seminal emission can go to the mikveh the same day, so too a zav can go to the mikveh the same day as his emission. Now, ma balkari tova bayom hainami litvo biyome. So just like a balkari, someone with a seminal emission, can go to the mikveh that day. So too, zav can also go to the mikveh the same day. And you would have thought, perhaps for a moment, that a zava would also, a female who has a zava emission, would go to the mikveh the same day. But says the Gemara, we're still building this up. Why the Mishnah had to single her out? V'habiyamama lo matzi tavla. But we know, of course, that a zava could not go to the mikvah on the very day that she has her zava emission. How do we know? Dichsiv, or mishum dichsiv, because it says, kol yemei zova, all the days of her zavaness, and this is talking about the shomeres yom keneged yom, the one who saw one day and checking the next day. All those days, kimishkav nidasa yela. She's like, she will be like a nida. And, which means that just like a nida has to count 7 days, so a shomeres yom also has to count. What does she have to count? At 1 day. Shomeres yom keneged yom. For each day, she's like a nida for that day, meaning she has to count a day that corresponds to it. So she for sure cannot purify herself on the day that she has her emission, because she needs to count, she has to count that, I guess, really that day, I think, as day 1. 1 second. Really, she has to count a clean day, a pure day, which is going to be the next day, so she has to get to the next day. So, now she doesn't have to necessarily count the whole next day as pure, but she has to start the next day. So So the day that she sees, she certainly can't go to the mikveh because she has to count a day corresponding to that. Now you would have said, Belelia mias li'aven miktsashim or betitful. But let her just, that night, it's a new day, right? The night is a new day. Let her just have a bit of a shimur, being a bit of a shomeres yom k'neged yom, a bit of a few minutes where she checks, she's careful, and she sees that she's pure. And on the basis of that, like a miktsas yom kekula, she just needs a bit of that day to start to see that she's pure, and she should be able to go to the mikvah at night already. So that's what you might have thought. So Kamash Malan, so that's why the Mishnah had to come to teach me. Then no, Kevan debaya sfira, since she actually has to count a day, sfira biyamamahi. Counting days is always during the daytime. When we by a regular nida, so it says she has to count 7 days. So counting days is days. So too the zava. So the zava, again, during these 11 days following her nidus, she had some kind of emission. And that makes her a shomeres yom k'neged yom. She has to guard 1 day for that day. Because the pasuk says she has to be like she would be a nida. Which means, we don't say she has to count 7 days yet, but she has to count 1 day. So you might have said, and this is why the Mishnah had to single her out, you might have said, so she can't go to the mikveh today that she had the emission, but tonight she could. Maybe tonight is already the shomeres yom. She has a little bit into that day. The night is a new day, and once she's a little bit in, so that suffices. We just need to start the shmira, the watching, and that's enough. So that's what you would have thought, and therefore the Mishnah says no. She has to go during the day. Why does she have to go why can she not go at night? Why does she have to wait till the daytime? Because she needs sfira. She has to count. And counting is only during the day. Just like, because she's like a nida. A nida, it says she has to count during the day. She has to count 7 days. So too, the shomeres yom k'neged yom has to count during the day. So she has to get to the day and count that day before she can go to the mikvah. And she cannot go to the mikvah at night. Or at least not the first night. Okay. Now the Mishnah concluded and said, "V'kulan sha'asa u'meisha'alam adashachar kasher." But anyone who did any of these things, read the Megillah, did a bris milah, purified themselves through mikvah or sprinkling, all these things that have to be done during the day. If you did it from dawn, daybreak, yatsa kasher, it's good enough. Ask the Gemara Minahani Mili. Where's the source for this? How do we know that the day starts already from dawn? So Amar Rava says, the Amar Kra, because the pasuk is, Vayikra Elokim la'or yom, and God called the light day. Okay, but the Gemara, Rava darshans, he learns out, Lemeir uba karo yom. Rava looks at the word la'or, not as a noun, as to the light day, but to the lighting. When it's lighting up, it's already day. That's what it says, and God called to the lighting up day, lameir uba. When it's lighting up, it's called day, and that is already from dawn. That's when it starts to light up. So ask the Gemara al Me'ata if that's true. But then the pasuk goes on and says, "V'lachoshech kar laila." Then he called darkness night. But according to you, we should not read darkness as a noun, but rather as the darkening. L'machshechu ba kar laila. When it starts to get dark, it's called night. Which would mean that night starts from sunset already. But we paskin, we ruled that until the stars come out, it's not night yet. So according to, if Rava was correct that the source that the day starts from dawn is because it says Vayikra Elokim la'or yom, that God called to the lighting up of the day, and therefore from dawn already it's daytime, then you have to say V'lachoshech kar laila means that he called the darkening of the day night, which means already from sunset, but we don't rule that way. We paskin that it's not nighttime until the stars come out. So Elam Rabbi Zera mehachas. Rabbi Zera says we have a different source, and this source, that the day starts from daybreak, from dawn, is from Nehemiah. And the pasuk says, "V'anachnu osim b'malacha." We were working. V'chetziam machazikim baramachim, and half the people were holding spears, were guarding. Me'alos, I think this is talking about the building of the second Beis Hamikdash. Me'alos hashachar ad tzeis hakochavim. From alos hashachar, from dawn, from daybreak, until tzeis hakochavim, until the stars came out. So it says we were working from dawn until the stars came out. Ve'omer, and it also says, V'hayu lanu halayla mishmar v'hayom malacha. The night was like guarding, and the day was malacha. That we were doing malacha throughout the day is implied. So what do we see from here? We see, first of all, that it says that they were working from daybreak until the stars came out, and it says that they were working during the daytime. So my Omer, what's that second pasuk adding? Because v'chitema, you might say, Misha'al amad hashachar lav yamama, u'michi'arba shamsha lilia. You might have said, okay, they were working from dawn, and they were working till the stars came out, but that doesn't mean that that's the definition of a day. Maybe they were working from dawn, that they started before the day started. And maybe they were working till nightfall, till the stars came out, but that was after the day ended. Maybe the day ended at sunset, and they were working past. But that's why we have the other pasuk, Tashma, coming here. The end of the pasuk says, it's the same pasuk actually, it's the end of the pasuk. It says, sorry, it's not the same pasuk, it's the next pasuk. It says, V'hayu lanu halayla mishmar v'hayom malacha. The night was a time for guarding, and the day was a time for work. So they were working during the day. And when were they working? From dawn until the stars came out. That's what the pasuk says. So we see that if they were working specifically in the day, and not at night, at the night they were guarding, and they were working from dawn until tzeis, so we see that the definition of a day is from dawn until tzeis, until the stars come out, and that is the source that the day really starts already from alos hashachar, from dawn, and therefore any of these mitzvahs that we talked about, if you would do them from dawn, you'd still be yotzei, you would fulfill the obligation, it would work, but they're ideally done from nates, from sunrise, when it was more obvious and clear that the daytime has already started.